Okay, Lester, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Good,
Glad to be here.
cool. Glad, yeah, thank you very much. Glad to hear. Okay, buddy. So we've gone through how the session is going to run, so there's no need to repeat that. And obviously, you're here for some breakup advice. So, how can I help?
Well, I had a relationship that lasted 8 months, which ended last April, April 13th, which happened to be the day before my birthday. Uh, we met last summer, and he is 23 years old, I'm 34 years old, so there was a bit of a difference. Um, but he was rather mature for the most part. So we met last summer, and from the beginning, they our personalities meshed in many ways, but we kind of were not getting to each other because I think we were both coming out of relationships that had walls and things like that. So the relationship in the beginning was rather volatile. Um, but then, come January, things we kind of talked things through and things kind of smoothed out, and they started becoming better and better and better. And then we made it official. We became official boyfriends, and yeah, things were going great. Uh, I want to be clear that the reason my relationship ended, I precipitated, the ending by um, breaking his trust twice in the form of flirtatious texts via Instagram that I had no intention on following through in any capacity. Uh, it was just, I guess, mindless or a coping mechanism for something, but it just happened. It happened once, and he gave me a chance, and we continued our relationship. And for the most part, for
Let's.
several years. Sorry.
Sorry, buddy, you broke up there for a second. Could you just repeat the last 5 seconds, maybe?
In that I had been in a growth pattern for a couple of years now, and that after the first incident that he gave me that second chance, I really went into overdrive into working on myself, trying to find the root of what led me to do those things, and of course, actively not wanting to break his trust again. So for the next 5, 6, 7 months, everything was great for the most part. Everything was great. We started talking about the possibility of moving in together the next year after we had a year and a half, close to 2 years, planning our anniversary trips and my birthday, which was on April 14th, this April 14th. Uh, Long story short, I made that mistake again, and for some reason, he well, actually, the first time it happened, the measures that I took, I changed my phone number. I gave him my code for the sake of trust and things like that. And for some reason, that day on the 13th, um, he went into my phone while I was taking a shower, and he found the conversations. And when I came down from taking my shower, very peacefully, I saw it in his eyes, I saw it in his face. He said that you understand what happened. Yes. You understand what I told you. Yes. So we're breaking up. At the moment, I didn't try to make any scene or try to hold um, beg him or anything like that, because I knew, first of all, that I was wrong, and second of all, I knew I was warned. So he so that happened. I was accepting, but of course, terribly sad and ashamed. So this is when things shift. He goes home to his house, comes back to pick up his things, and then proceeds to take all the gifts that he gave me through our relationship. He was very prone to gift giving. That was one of his love languages. So
Mhm.
he went on and took everything, and there were many, and there were a lot of things, and he took it all. And when I asked why, since I'm not doing that with you, of course, because I gave things out of love, And I quote, he said, "These were not really gifts. This was an investment. I'm still not quite sure what the investment was or on." And so that was terrible. And then it got even worse because he had been planning my birthday dinner and birthday party. And I assumed that the activity was canceled. But then I found out through Instagram 2 days later, because it was on a Friday, that the party was being held. Same restaurant, same guests, minus my guests, everything, the cake, the hors d'oeuvres, the souvenirs, everything that he had planned, except the person, which was me, all broadcast on Instagram for me to see while I spent my birthday in that day completely alone. So that really triggered 3 or 4 days of a blur of deep, deep depression, where I would just wake up, drink water, have something to eat, shower, and go back to bed. And long story short, after that, it was hell, physical pain on my heart. And then I did the wrong thing. I begged, I pleaded, I begged and pleaded, I negotiated. I went through all the motions that people with anxious attachment style like myself go through. And he asked me for space. I did not really give him the space. And even though he was a little bit partial, because he would not reach out, but he would engage with me. That led me, like a month or two in, maybe a month or two in the breakup, to be blocked. First, he blocked me on WhatsApp. Then he blocked me on Instagram. Then he finally blocked me on the iMessage on the phone. And then he did something that no one had done, ever, which was he called my parents. He called my family, who live in Dominican Republic. I'm in the United States, to tell them that somehow I had become unhinged and out of control after the breakup, and that he felt harassed and scared, which is shocking to me. And of course, my family reached out to me extremely concerned with, like, am I having a nervous breakdown and I'm going to do something to this person because I'm so out of my wits. Yeah. And from that's the end. That's where we are now. I'm completely blocked. I have been blocked. After that, I started therapy, really delved into your videos, journaling, doing all the motions to push through and process this. And yet I still loved him and love him, and was hoping to have some sort of reconnection, which I don't think it'll happen. So right now, I'm in much better shape than in the beginning. But right now, honestly, I'm seeking to move on. I want to move on. I've done a lot of progress, but I just want to move on. I was going to come here with the idea of asking for more tips and more things on how to handle it, hoping for a reconnection. But right now, knowing that the reconnection will most likely not happen, and I'm not even sure if I even want it right now, because there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of hurt that's happened, and I've been rejected on so many levels and on so many occasions, that I'm like, I just want to stop it. I want for him not to be in my cone of vision any longer, if possible, to a point that if he actually reaches out someday, my reaction will be completely serene, completely unbothered, and like, oh, great, maybe I want this, maybe I don't. So that's where you find me.
Okay, buddy. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. It sounds very frustrating and, yeah, anxiety inducing. I can fully understand why you're feeling the way you do and why you've reached out. Okay, so I think there is a lot to unpack here, and just want to address one thing before we get into it.
Mhm.
So you gave him full access to your phone, and that's how he found out that you were
Correct.
talking to other people on Instagram. Was that
Well,
something that
to one person, not
to
to
one
people,
person,
to one
to
person
one person?
that day. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So did he have access to your phone from the very start of the relationship? Because how did what I want to ask?
No,
How
he
did he
didn't.
find out that? How did he find out the first time it happened?
Actually, he saw it by accident because I was showing him
Right.
something on my phone, and he
Sorry, Lester. Can you hear me?
because it's literally
Sorry, Lester. Can you hear me?
that was a complete
Can you
accident. It's really on
hear? Lester, I'm really sorry, man, but you keep cutting out. If you've got bad signal where you are. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Uh, yeah, if you got are you on Wi-Fi where you are? Because your
I
signal keeps
am.
dropping out. You
I
are.
am.
Have you
Yes.
got?
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. We'll have to just muddle through. If it keeps happening, I'll just we'll have to think around it. But no, it's okay. Cool.
Okay.
Okay. So could you just repeat the last 20 or 30 seconds of what you said? Because I couldn't hear anything.
That I gave him access to my phone after the first time that happened, but I never had access to his phone because I never really cared or needed to.
Yeah.
I did it for him as a proof and a proof to myself that nothing was going to happen, especially since I had changed my
Mm,
phone number. So no one from my past had access to me
right.
any longer. So,
Okay. So
and mhm.
was it the same person you were talking to from the first time when he
No, no,
saw
no, no,
this
no, 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 no,
different
no,
person?
no, 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 no. Actually, the people that he found, some of them were from the early stages of us dating when we weren't even exclusive. But that,
Right.
he felt because he had been exclusive, but we hadn't had that actual conversation. So that was
Right.
the first instance of the issue.
So in his head, you guys were exclusive, but in
Well,
your head, you hadn't had that conversation yet.
mm, yes and no. He just didn't expect me to be doing that. I think that's what it was. That's
Even
what it
when you
was.
were, so even when you wasn't exclusive.
Right. Based on the fact that we pretty much were together all the time, which is true. And I wasn't really dating anybody else or looking
Okay.
at that point. So
Okay.
I understood it then.
Yeah.
And mind you, that had been a trend that had happened before in other relationships of mine. So I knew that I needed to take a handle on this if I wanted this to succeed and do things right, which is what I wanted and want. Um,
Mm,
so after I deleted all the stuff and given my access, yes.
yeah. Okay. So I think what you said a few minutes ago regarding that you want help moving on, I do think that's the correct course of action because your exes ended the relationship for ultimately a boundary violation, which he
Correct.
considers is a non-negotiable. And there's not really anything anyone can do about that. That's his boundary, and he said, "Hey, look, please don't do this again. Otherwise, I'm going to have to walk away." No, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's not too
Mm-hmm.
much we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But so
I
he's
do
doing
love
the
him, mind you. I do love him.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do think that I, I just, I just wished he had seen all the progress that I had made and all the work that we have put into it.
Mm.
Because I think his decision came from a place of ego, not of a place of necessarily his heart. I
It's a
don't know, but
possibility. So it's a possibility, but only he will know the answer to that.
correct.
But the thing is, this actually comes up quite often when people ask me, "Oh, how can I show my ex the progress that I've made?" And even
Mm-hmm.
if you could do that, it's actually a bit of a bad move because what can happen in their head is like, "Well, why are you doing this now? Why didn't you do it while we was together?" And that can
Mm-hmm.
actually piss people off even more because it's like, right, you're only doing this now because you've got something to lose. So the only way he will ever see that is if he chooses to reach out, and that's going to be
Correct.
totally his decision at the end of the day. So
Right.
if he does choose to reach out in the future, and then you can say, hey, yeah, look, I've been working on a few things, and
Mhm.
I know I messed up. And I think
Mhm.
if he was to ever reach out, it is one of those cases where you'd have to take full responsibility for, look, I don't know why this is happening with the Instagram thing. I don't know why I've got one foot in and one foot out of the relationship, but I'm working on it. And I think,
And I
yeah,
was even when we were together.
yeah,
I had what Instagram happened, I think, became became the substitute for Grinder, which I had completely erased. I don't know if you're aware of that app. It's
I'm
a
I'm aware of
primarily
Brian. I'm aware of
right.
Brian. Yeah.
So it became kind of without me knowing, it kind of became like the substitute. And in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not doing anything really, right? So this is just mindless chatter. But the boundary thing, of course, which I completely understand.
But let's flip the dynamic on that.
Right.
What if it was the other way around, and you found flirtatious messages on his Instagram? How would that make you feel?
Honestly, knowing my personality, I would probably not break up with him over it.
Mm. There's definitely
I don't think I would.
okay. So there is definitely like yeah, a key thing here. There's definitely a lot of protest behavior from him. The fact that he took all the gifts back, and it's
Right.
kind of
That
like
was
it's not a gift, it's an investment. That's a very unusual
vindictive.
sentence. Yeah, it's very unusual.
Mhm.
I've never really actually come across those words in that sentence. It's not a gift, it's a sentence. That's
And
I
it's
was
a
kind of
direct quote.
yeah, I was kind of taken back by that by a little bit, but it's like, well, it's kind of like
So the gifts were
he
conditional.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, so he's one of his love languages is, well, it's collecting ammunition for the future, and that's that's
Mm,
that's a dick move.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
What a phrase.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and that's so I think
Wow.
yeah, even though like you freely admit that you messed up,
Absolutely.
it doesn't excuse the way he's dealt with it. And okay, look, let's validate him a little bit here. He's hurt, he's angry, boundary violation. He's probably just acted out, but that would suggest to me that that's more of a learned behavior. That's maybe something that's happened to him in his past, and maybe
Yeah,
childhood or
there's a lot.
previous relationships. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
if you're naughty, I'm taking these gifts away. That's bullshit.
Yeah, there's a lot on his hand that's unresolved, and which of course that's not the topic for discussion. But
No, absolutely. But there's
I have never seen it like that.
yeah. But we do have to
Ammunition.
but we do have to recognize there's pain on both sides.
Absolutely.
One of the first thing we have to recognize is that because yeah, so do I think that was grounds for a breakup? No, not necessarily, because look, if it was a bit of harmless flirtation, am I agreeing with it? No, I'd say okay, it was a lapse in judgment, but you haven't violated a boundary by emotionally cheating or physically cheating or anything like that. That I do think it's a bit of an overreaction. I will totally agree with you there. But I think the key thing that you said here is that it's a substitute for Grinder, and I think maybe that's what we need to look into today. Because if you're gonna find the method to start moving on, you have to find out why these behaviors are actually happening. So
Mhm.
could it be that there's maybe something exciting about the novelty or the fantasy of talking to a complete stranger over the internet? And even though you've now or had the partner, the prize, you got the prize, you achieved that goal, but there was something still there that you were chasing. Does that make sense at all?
I think that there's a little bit of that dopamine rush, and also honestly, even though it's no excuse anyway, it's kind of become part of the culture, and
When you can
it was
you
kind
just
of I was kind of unweaving myself from it. That it's
when
almost
you
like
say
withdrawals.
sorry, when you say culture, what do you mean exactly?
Well, in the sense of that uh, promiscuity or sex positiveness is very prevalent
Right.
in the
Yeah.
gay community. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
so right. So it's like, um, in my case, I think that it was part. It's after you spend years in a particular behavior,
Mm.
it becomes sometimes tough to. I'm explaining it. I'm not saying that it's that it was that I'm right, that I should be excused, but
Sure. Sure.
I think it has to do with that, because the thing is that I didn't even have really interest in meeting any of these people, or doing
Mm.
anything. So it stopped in chatter and stuff. But yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I definitely think that's maybe something to explore with your therapist,
Yeah,
because,
definitely.
yeah, because somewhere along the line that's become a go-to place, and as you say, maybe a dopamine rush, and but dopamine is a very addictive thing. It makes us feel good, and and different sources give us like a different dopamine rush, even though dopamine is
Mhm.
dopamine, but we get different rushes from different things, that kind of thing. So maybe that is definitely something worth exploring, which is beyond the scope of what this conversation is about today. That's definitely something you should
Of
talk about with
course.
your therapist. And it's good. So first of all, it's great that you're
Mhm.
doing therapy. That's a very positive step. And I'm very pro therapy, because I think, for me, therapy is like gym for the mind. Basically, people got no problem going to the gym and building their muscles, but they don't want to build their mental muscle at the same time. So that's
Absolutely.
it's a very good step. So keep doing
Yeah.
that. Right. So let me ask you this: What's you say, like, you want help moving on? What's stopping
Yeah.
you from moving? What's stopping you from moving on right now?
I mean, I have been in the process. Um, well, that I still feel guilty.
Sure.
I still feel guilty about it. And it's like trying to accept that it's just not in the cards. And it
Yeah.
goes back and forth. I go back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can get that, man, and I can fully appreciate how that can feel, and there's a lot of anxiety, scary, and probably very angry at yourself that this was easily avoidable. Maybe that's the biggest thing
Right.
that
And that it
yeah.
happened, right. That was something, because I had promised myself that I did not want another relationship to end in similar fashion.
So has this
Um,
happened before? Has this happened before?
well, not with the once before, yes, once before, which
Okay.
prompted my initial growth path.
Okay. So what's the longest relationship you've had?
4 years.
Okay. And
And he's my best friend. He's
right.
the
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but I'm just trying to sort of build a picture to see if there's any patterns. How did that relationship end? Did you end it, or did he end it?
No, he ended it, but it was more of a, we just became friends more than lovers.
Right. Okay. I see.
And yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Um. So I think here's the thing. It's only been 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a very short time, even for an 8-month relationship. We attach to who we attach to, and yeah, and I think the biggest thing I'm kind of getting from you is that you're very angry at yourself, because, as we just discussed, it was easily avoidable,
Right.
but it's also a case of trying to get to a point of where you can say, oh, look, I fucked up, but I'm working on it, and I'm going to forgive myself for messing up. And maybe that's not the right time to do that right now, because it's only been 3 months. It's 12 weeks, or maybe even a little bit
Right.
less than that. It's 12 weeks. And that, in the terms of a breakup, it's no time at all. So I think what happens is, a lot of the time, people try to move on quickly rather than correctly. And doing it correctly takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
now, people listening to this right now might be thinking, oh, it's only been 8 months. But, sometimes time time is not a reflection of how deeply
And it
you
was
felt for
very,
that person.
we were very close. We spent a lot of time together, and we had a lot of, had still actually have a pretty good chemistry. So that's yeah. So it was not,
But
it had the makings of a much, people thought that we had been together for longer actually.
right. Yeah, I think also, I mean, we also have to look out. We have to also respect that there's an 11-year age gap here.
Right.
And whilst I would agree for the most part that age is but a number, but
Right.
when you're in your 20s, and maybe you can probably attest to this from being someone that's now in your 30s, age gaps are actually a bit more significant when we're in our early 20s, because
Right.
we don't fully develop until we're about 25. Our brains do not fully develop until about then. Okay, so
Right.
he's not fully developed yet, and maybe that explains some of these, protesting behaviors, whilst maybe justified in this case. But again, not I still, again, the reaction from his part, I feel, is quite extreme. Now,
Right.
I don't want to judge him for that. He's not here to defend himself. He
Right.
he feels how he feels, and that's okay. Just how you feel is also okay. But maybe there is a maturity aspect that we have to respect it, or lack thereof, because you're 34. You've
Yeah.
actually got a. I mean, look, I'm
I'm his first boyfriend, but mind you, I forgot that little
Oh,
point.
okay. That actually, well, that would kind of tie in with what we're seeing here. And hey, look, you're 34. I'm 38. So if you was dating someone that's 34 and 38, that's not much a big of a deal. Or if
Right.
you was dating someone that was in their early 40s, even though, let's say 11 years, let's say you was dating someone that's 45, that's actually less of an issue compared to 34 and 23, because
Right.
you've got more life experience to fall back on. So I
Right.
think it's kind of fallen into place now. First boyfriend, age gap, lack of maturity, there's some protest behavior there. But maybe this might be a blessing in disguise, because if he's going to react this explosively, or not explosive, should we say severely, to what is a minor thing. And okay, if I was to see my
Well,
girlfriend
is it minor
flirting on
really?
Insta, well, it depends. I mean, look, I can say as a 38-year-old, I'd be a little bit pissed off about it if it was my girlfriend. But look, please don't do that again. That is disrespectful. But again, it depends on the context of the conversation, and also what is flirtatious to somebody else is nothing to the next person. So he
Right.
might see it as flirtatious. You might have just seen it as some harmless banter. So there might be.
I mean, it was flirtatious. I'm not
Okay,
gonna.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and if it's flirtatious, then okay, fair enough. But if how long had that flirtation been going on for?
That day, it happened after between the first time that happened and that time, they were like the next 6 months that it was just fine.
Okay, so that this person on Instagram sent you a message, you replied with a bit of flirtation.
Right. Right. Well, we had a little bit of a conversation. It was a conversation.
Was it sexual?
Uh, at it verged on it, but
It verged
yeah,
on. Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay, I mean,
And
so
after it happened, I said, "This is ridiculous. I have to like," and I just forgot to delete it because I
yeah.
was not expecting him to just pick out of all the days the day before my birthday to decide to
Mm.
see, let's see what he's up to or whatever.
Seems like he has some kind of hidden radar that no one knew about there, because he
Well,
seems to be right.
some have said that maybe that was something that he was actually looking for.
Maybe.
Maybe, but
Maybe we'll never know
we'll never know.
unless he says something. But yeah, it's really unfortunate, Lester. It really is,
Yeah,
because I think there's been, from the start, there's been a lack of communication, because he's thinking you two are exclusive. You're just like, well, no, we haven't had that discussion yet. So there's one aspect to it. There's been boundary violations, so
Right.
he's boundaries are not being discussed. And here's the thing with boundaries: they have to be discussed at the beginning. Please do not do this. Please do not do this thing. This, I do not like this. And if the boundaries align, then a successful relationship can occur. If the boundaries do not align, then maybe it's not the right person for you. But nonetheless, there is a boundary violation, and that's something you're going to have to square with. That's something you will have to take responsibility for, which I think you are. Which I think you are. And it's just a case now, man, of maybe practicing acceptance of, okay, maybe this is irretrievable. Because I mean, look, personally speaking, and I don't know if you feel the same way, if someone violated what I would call a non-negotiable boundary, I would not be going back to that person. So whatever your non-negotiable boundary might be, whatever that is, if somebody violates that, what would you do? And if you can answer that honestly, then you can maybe see it from his point of view. Well, my non-negotiable boundary was violated. I do not want to go there anymore. So maybe that's something. I know that's hard to hear, probably, but that is part of the moving on process. Of, okay, I need just to accept what's in front of me, no matter how bad that hurts. I need to accept this. And once we can accept that and let go of hope, because I think hope is a very dangerous thing in breakups. I have this conversation probably 4 or 5 times a day when people say, "Oh, I've still got hope." No, you need to let that go, because hope is really just it's a construct in our heads that we believe that we can change or influence people or events beyond our control. That's kind of what hope is, and we just have to let that go. But I get that it will be in the back of your head somewhere, and you're just like, okay, maybe he'll come back, maybe he'll calm down, but maybe he won't, because
he probably won't.
And that's the thing, man. I think you're actually being very realistic, which is a good thing, which is a good thing. And so I guess we just need to focus on the things that are gonna not speed up the process, but are just gonna help the process along.
Exactly.
So what have you been doing? Right, you said therapy, journaling. What else have you been doing since the breakup?
Oh, I've been working out, and I was working out before, but definitely took it.
Yeah. Okay, man. So
and it's been great.
Cool. And so what about everything okay with work in your career? Is that under control?
Yeah. In the
so
beginning there was a little but it was a little bit of a problem there, but then I quickly corrected.
Cool. So you're doing okay. You're doing okay financially. It's not something you need to sort of work on. All right.
Cool. Yeah.
Right. So this is what we need to focus on now. So outside of work, outside of the gym, and outside of journaling, what are you doing outside of that? What's the social life like? Hobbies, interests? What's going on there?
Yeah, I've reached out to friends that I had lost contact with, and I've actually made a couple new ones.
Good. So did you lose contact with those friends because of this relationship?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Definitely the fact that I had someone, it didn't make me more prone to.
Was that a conscious decision on your part, or was it because maybe there was a bit of jealousy in the relationship?
No. It was not because of jealousy or anything.
So you just basically gave so much time to your ex that you kind of neglected your friends a little bit. Would that be fair?
That's true. Yes. And then I ended up, when it ended, I didn't have any support system, but he kept his, because he did have a stronger support system.
Okay, man. So I think that's probably an area to focus on.
Definitely.
And not just in breakups, but in the future, that when you do start dating or get into a relationship again, whether it be with your ex or someone else, is that maintaining a sense of self, maintaining a sense, right? Okay, you are the last 10% of my equation. You put the icing on the cake. You're not
Yeah.
the whole cake. So it's got to be a case of them enhancing your happiness, not becoming the whole part of your happiness. So
Right.
that's very, very important. And listen, I've made that mistake many times in my life, and it's a mistake I will never repeat again. Very much maintain my life outside of my relationship, because it's one aspect of my life. It's a very important part of my life. It's a very important aspect of my life, but it's not the whole thing. So it's yeah. So okay, man. So you're reestablishing connections, which is good. What about hobbies and stuff?
Uh, well, I build Legos and stuff, but sometimes it's hard for me to find
Okay.
uh
All right.
time.
Okay. So what about something that you've always wanted to do but never had the time to do, or just been too scared to do?
Hmm. Woodworking. That's something that I've been interested in. I'm
Okay.
an architect, so yeah.
Oh, amazing. That's awesome. So do you think maybe finding a workshop that you can go to once a week where you do a class just for an
Sure,
hour? Yeah.
sure.
So I mean, look, that's just a suggestion, because when we're in the process of moving on, one, we need to take, first of all, it's accepting how we feel, and actually giving ourselves enough time to actually process these feelings. So I don't want you to make yourself so busy that you haven't got time to feel your feelings, because we end up suppressing them, and they'll just catch up with us down
Right,
the line, and they will mess you up big time. So
right.
you need to allow maybe 30 minutes every day or every other day, where you're just going to sit with your thoughts, process it, maybe write it down, meditate, whatever you got to do, and just let those feelings come out. But what can happen, and I've said this quite often, we can comfortably drown in the breakup. And what I mean by that is that we get comfortable with the breakup misery. We get comfortable feeling bad. We go numb. And then what happens then is we find ourselves sitting around waiting for the phone to ring,
Yeah.
which is not a good place to be. So a part of that is getting out of that comfort zone, because, you know, outside of, always ask this question. So outside of work and outside of the gym, what are you doing? So excuse me. What are you doing? And we get very comfortable with routine very quickly. So it's a case of, right, okay, let's look at the things that I've always wanted to do. Okay, woodwork, great. Yeah, you can do that maybe once a week or once every other week. That's fine. You can go and take a class, or it can be something completely different. The other thing that I recommend to a lot of people as well, volunteering. And I'll never forget that. Like, my older brother, he gave me this advice once, and so my older brother, he's basically been a lifelong recovering drug and alcoholic, basically, and he
Hmm.
relapses. He relapses every now and then. He has to go back into rehabilitation, stuff like that, and does the 12 steps, Alcoholic Anonymous and stuff like that. And step number 12 is giving back, basically acts of service, because it makes you feel good, and it's kind of like I guess that's kind of why I started my channel. That was a reaction to my breakup. Is like, okay, I've learned a lot. Let me see if I can give something back, because I was in a support group on Facebook. Then I was in there for a little bit. Then I just started answering questions, and then everyone started inboxing me. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to record something, give people the link, and that's kind of how the channel started. And that became actually an outlet to deal with my breakup, to deal with the pain, is actually helping others. So helping others to help yourself move on is actually a very key component, because acts of service actually makes us feel good. So, and it hasn't got to be something like what I do. I just found something I enjoy doing. It could be volunteering at a dog shelter, a charity shop, a library,
Hmm.
just giving a couple of hours of your time every week, where you'll be in a place meeting other people there to do the same job that you're doing. And that's how new friendships can build. And it also just gives you that outlet just to turn that anxiety down a couple of notches, because you're so focused on doing that one thing. And when I started doing my uncomfortable hobby, and that was going to music school and learning the drums,
Oh,
that
wow.
first lesson I had. Now I stepped off the train. It's a 5-minute walk between the train station and the music school. I almost cancelled 3 times in that 5 minute period because I was terrified. But when I got in there and I was listening to the teacher for that 1 hour, everything else in my head, all of the anxiety, all of the pain got turned down to zero because I was just so focused on listening to what I was being told and trying to do it. And that's where it starts. It's just, where can I find these little respites throughout the day where I can just turn the volume down in my head a little bit and I can just focus on this task to give my mind a little bit of peace. And that 1 hour becomes 90 minutes. That 90 minutes becomes 2 hours and so on. Then it becomes a day. Then it's like, wow, I haven't thought about them all day. And it's just that steady progression. So getting back to that sense of self, because it seems like to me that with this particular relationship and maybe relationships before that, when you're getting into these relationships, you're forgetting about you. You're not giving yourself love and attention and validation. And maybe why this Instagram thing happened, because maybe you're still seeking some kind of validation, because what social media is, it's validation. We go on social media to get validated. We have to be real with each other here, and it can be very addictive. I get that, and it's okay to do it every now and then. I'm not saying so much flirting with people, but just posting some nice pictures up and say, hey, look, I did this really good thing today. It's okay to do it every now and then, but what can happen, and I think what's happened here to you on Grindr, I'm assuming that you got a lot of attention on Grindr. You're being validated,
right? Absolutely.
And this person slides into your DMs. You're getting validated, and so that's something to look at with your therapist. Why, even though I've got a good relationship with boyfriend that is loving, caring, and validating me, why do I still need to seek extra validation? So it would seem to me that somewhere along the line, you're not validating yourself. And that's probably the target that you need to aim at. And that all starts with finding your center, finding your purpose, and finding yourself. And that all starts with, okay, let me build my life outside of work in the gym. Yeah. And therapy. You're doing therapy, that's a good start. But start getting back out there, right? Find other self-sufficient ways of validating yourself. Now, that's different for everybody. The way I've come to validate myself is like, okay, can I help this person that I'm talking to today? That's kind of, that's how I sort of self-validate myself, that I was able to help that person. Or sometimes it's just the case I just sit there and like, right, okay, I'm happiness for me is that I can sit in on a Friday night by myself with nothing to do, watching a film or chilling with a computer game, which I don't have much time to do these days. And I'm totally happy doing that and being in bed by 10 and 11 o'clock because I want to be up at 6 a.m. for the gym.
Right.
That's when I truly knew, okay, that's what happiness for me looks like. It's different for everybody, but that's when you find that validation that I'm okay being by myself. I'm okay doing acts of service for myself. And I think maybe that would be a good target for you to aim for, is learning how to self-love and validate unconditionally for yourself. Because I think if we was to really, really drill down into it a little bit, you can't turn up for your partner if you're not turning up for yourself. And that's where self-love and self-validation comes into it. And maybe that's why you not fell in love, but maybe just got hooked on the fantasy, the novelty of that person on the other end of that DM validating you. Maybe it was just a fantasy. That's all it was, but it was enough to end this relationship. Does that make sense?
It does.
What do you think about that?
I'm like, about the finding my purpose. I'm not sure I know what that really means, because I think I have my purpose. I mean, I love my profession and
that's fine. And that's fine, man. And that's fine. If you've already had your purpose, that's fine. It's just making sure that you stick to it. So, or maybe a better way to rephrase it is finding your center. Because at the moment you are far from center, because you've got anxiety, you've got all these breakup feelings, and don't get me wrong, you're meant to feel this way right now, but the whole purpose of this call today is actually trying to get you back to center. Is trying to get you back to where Leicester feels happy, you know, and that is building a great single life that come what may, I'm okay by myself. Yeah, it can be lonely sometimes, but I'll be okay. And I said this to my client just before I spoke to you. And funny enough, that was a recorded session. Um, oh crap, the words are completely fallen out of my head. Now I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Oh my God, that is embarrassing. I'm so sorry. Oh, it had to happen on a recorded session. What a dick. If it comes back to me, I will let you know. But yeah, so yeah, man, it's just.
And in terms of when to date, when to start getting out, because I've tried it and then I realized that I wasn't ready.
And that's fine. So
I've been more selective about it.
Okay, so yeah, I would dare say that you're probably not emotionally available right now, and that's okay, because always remember, look, Dumpees can rebound as well. Dumpees actually probably, I would say they don't rebound as much as the dumper, but it's pretty close. There's not that much discrepancy between it, you know, especially if you've got a lot of available options to you. So yeah, and you've got, you know, a lot of dumpees would tend to reach out to exes from years ago, and that certainly happened to me. I was cheated on in 2014, and 2 weeks after being cheated on, I was in bed with the ex before that. You know, so it can happen. I totally. So I would say, you know, look, if dating requires a lot of energy, and it's energy that you're not giving to yourself. So I think to be in a good place to date, you have to be well on your way of saying, okay, look, the breakup sucks. I still love my ex, but you know, I'm just testing the waters a little bit, and I've got a great single life. And yeah, if an opportunity comes up, I'll investigate, and I will see where it goes, but I'm not going to actively look. So I think sometimes this is why I don't really like dating apps a lot of the time, because typically what you find on dating apps is wounded animals most of the time. And I'm not saying that about you, but typically speaking, someone that is okay with being single, you probably won't find them on a dating app, because it's like, well, if something comes along, great. If not, then I'm okay with my single life, you know. And that's what I mean by a relationship should be the most inconvenient thing. It should be the most inconvenient thing in the world, because your single life is so good. And it's like, right, okay, now I want to spend all my time with this person. You're actually disrupting my single life now. How dare you? That's the mindset, you know. It's the other way around for a lot of people. It's like, I hate being single. I need a relationship, so I'm going to choose the next person that comes along, even if they're toxic. You know, so maybe that's something just worth avoiding for, I'd say, maybe 6 to 9 months. But look, hey, look, if something comes up,
right,
and it clicks, investigate, right. find out. But you should be upfront with this person. Say, hey, look, you know, maybe, you know, I don't think I'm over my ex fully yet. It's going to take me some time. I do like you, but X, Y, and Z, and you know, so I can't stop you from dating, but I would advise maybe you just focus on the things that we've already discussed, and you know, give unconditional love to yourself, unconditional validation, because if you can do that, then I think this little hiccup that you've had with Instagram probably won't ever happen again, because you're validating yourself. And maybe come off social media for a couple of weeks. And when I was going through my breakup, I'd have huge amounts of time off of social media, like 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, and I felt so much better. Because what is social media at the end of the day? You're looking at everybody's highlight reel, and right. you're comparing it to your real life situation, and it's like, oh, why is my real life not like that? But I've got news for you: their real life is not like that. No one is. And I'll give you a good example. When just before my breakup over 2 years ago now, it was we was in lockdown, and so obviously we can't go out, and so my ex, she has a daughter, and I'd been there since the little girl had been 3 months old, so I very much became her father. And anyway, so fast forward to like when she's like 3.5 years old, we're in the house that day, and it was a bad day. We can't go out, so a 3.5 year old is going to do what a 3-year-old does, and they're going to be climbing the walls and bouncing off the walls and just being unruly, which little girls do and little boys do. That's normal. But we've been locked in together for I think maybe 6 weeks at this point. So I think we're getting on top of each other. Wasn't much communication, and just getting really irritated with each other. It was a really, really bad day. There was a lot of arguing and stuff like that. Anyway, towards the end of the day, my ex was like, "Oh, let's take a selfie," right? And so we took a selfie with me, her, and her daughter, and it was like the most perfect picture you'd ever see.
Right, the most perfect smile.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I ended up hating that picture because when it was posted online, everyone said how great it was, and I was like, if only you knew
what happened 30
all the
minutes
shit
before.
that happened before that picture was taken. If only you knew how bad that day was, because that was just before we broke up.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. This is where social media could be very, very toxic, and this is why don't compare yourself. Come off it for just even maybe try it for a day or two, because I get.
Although actually, social media it hasn't really been an issue in terms of that. I mean, it has been an issue, but a different issue. But not. I'm not someone. I mean, I don't really compare myself or have. I don't have a lot of FOMO. I don't think
that's good.
The thing that's been an issue and a struggle that still is not look at his social media.
Okay. So this is why that needs to stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've listened to your videos, and I know that the further I do it, the worse it'll get.
Yeah, because here's the thing. So you feel out of control. So to try and reestablish a control, to try to reestablish some control, you look at his social media. That then causes you more anxiety. That makes you feel more out of control. So you look again, more anxiety. You feel out of control. Look again, more anxiety. You see the cycle, and the only way you can break that is by stopping it, because it's gonna drive you crazy. It will drive you absolutely mental, and it's gonna keep you exactly where you are. So in this case, ignorance is bliss. You should have zero information about your ex. Zero.
And it is, it's almost like more than the control. It's almost like, because I know as time has gone by, his memory has become fainter and fainter and fainter and fainter. And it's almost like, oh my God, if I keep doing this right, eventually he will disappear, kind of from it'll happen what I want it to happen at a conscious level, but then the subconscious and maybe the heart sentiment attachment component holds me back a little bit by doing that. Like, well, at least I do it. I said to myself, I do it once a day. That's like my thing. But I understand that it needs to end, and
yeah. So look, you've got to replace that habit with something else. So when you find yourself reaching for your phone to look at your social media, try and stop yourself and to say, right, okay, I'm going to replace this habit with reading a book. I'm going to replace this habit with working out. I'm going to replace this habit with listening to a video on YouTube. I'm going to replace this habit I'm going to go for a walk. That's it. Just you got to replace that habit, and you'll find that it will be tough, but it will start to get better. But here's the thing. I think the reason maybe you're feeling like that and what you've alluded to is that if you stop doing this, you will move on, and if you move on, he becomes further and further away. Yeah. So did you ever watch those wildlife programs where the mother monkey is carrying around her dead baby hoping it will come back to life? You ever seen those wildlife programs? Right. Okay. So basically, that's kind of the same thing. You're carrying around the carcass, the remnant of the relationship, hoping that this dead relationship's going to come back to life, and it's weighing you down. So you've got to bury this relationship. And even if you was to reconcile, you have to still bury the old relationship because it failed. There was something fundamentally.
That was part of the thing that if it were to happen again, it would be a completely something new because the previous one it's dead, it died.
Yeah, and you have to start that dating process again as if they're someone completely new, that you're reconnecting again, you're finding out about each other. But this is what a lot of people do. The reason they're looking on social media for information is because what I just said, they feel out of control and they're carrying around the dead monkey. They're carrying around the dead baby monkey and hoping it will come back to life. And all that happens is that weight becomes heavier and heavier and heavier. So when the cure becomes the disease, it's time to take a different medicine, my friend. And that different medicine, first of all, is sometimes there comes a time where you have to cut the arm off to save the body. Now, if someone asks you to cut your arm off, you find it almost impossible. It's like, no, that's my arm. I'm not cutting that off, it's my arm. Yeah. But it's like, well, look, it's either your arm or you lose your life. You choose which one you want.
Right.
And so you're at that point of where you have to choose, okay, do I take a little bit of pain now, or do I comfortably drown and let the pain get worse and worse and worse and worse? So it's like ripping off the band-aid. Yeah, it's going to pull the hairs off and it's going to sting, but it only stings for a few minutes and then it starts to heal. But the way you're doing it at the moment, that will get progressively worse if you don't cut this off right now. And that should be the first step of you moving on. It's like, so look, take the day, just process what we talked about, and write down a little step by step of what. Okay, how am I gonna start moving on? So you can say, right, step one tomorrow. You don't have to block him, but you can unfollow. You're like, right, I'm gonna unfollow social media and I'm gonna delete the apps for a couple of days or whatever that might be. And step two, when I feel like I'm going to or want to look at his profile, I'm going to replace that with this habit, and you can insert that habit of whatever that is. I'm going to do 50 push-ups. I'm going to run on the spot until I'm out of breath. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to listen to a video. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to go, whatever that might be. That's down to you. Just replace the habit. Yeah. Until that becomes, or that will become autopilot. So yeah. So build your list, man, and just, it's cliche, but like write down 5 things you want to achieve in the next 6 months. I did that at the start of my breakup, and I wrote down 10 things, and I think I've got 7 or 8 of them done within 6 months because I just focused on it. I thought, well, I'm done thinking about this shit anymore. I'm gonna go and get focused. And man, the stuff that I achieved, it was crazy, because I think Jordan Peterson says it is that if you give every ounce of your attention to one thing for 6 months, look how good you'll be at that thing after 6 months, or something along those lines. So give your attention to something else.
I will.
Yeah. He's not. So here's the thing. He's not giving you any attention right now, but he's still got your. So he's still got your attention.
Absolutely.
And the best way to get someone's attention is to remove yours. Now, I'm not saying he will come back, but he'll definitely notice that you've just disappeared off the face of the earth, and that will get somebody's curiosity going. Trust me. Whether they reach out or not is a different story. I don't know, but it's time to be selfish, my friend. It's time to love the shit out of yourself unconditionally, and that.
Okay, I have a question about that. How does that look? How does that? Because I think I do a lot of self-care and self-love, and not in the hoopla kind of thing. Like, for instance, working out, it's an act of love. Like resting, like actually taking time to rest. For instance, I'm a coffee drinker, so I enjoy the ritual of making coffee. So things like that. But when people say love yourself unconditionally, what I believe I love myself. I love what I see in the mirror in terms of like me as a person, and physically. But what does that mean? How would that look? What would I need to do to get there if I'm not?
That's something to talk to your therapist about.
Okay.
So look, one thing we've identified here is that there is some self-validation issues. So even though
Yeah.
like you look, you like what stares back at you in the mirror, and that's great. But there is a part of you that needs a bit of attention because you still need that you still need that validation from external sources, even when you've got a boyfriend.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the bit to discuss. That's the journey that you have to focus on, and that is, probably beyond my knowledge and my skill set. And that's what therapy is for, is understanding, okay, why am I doing this? Why can't I validate that part of myself?
Right.
Yeah. So what self-love looks like is unique to every individual. Yeah. So for me, I've already told you, like, for me, what self-love is for me is that I'm okay being on my own on a Friday night with nothing to do, even if I've not got no money to go out, and I'm okay just sitting down watching a film by myself, knowing that my life's pretty good, knowing that, okay, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. So also, I'd say, how can we put like a tangible thing on this? It's like turning up for yourself. It's like, okay, you're doing the physical, fine. But there's definitely a validation aspect that maybe, and hey, look, maybe it's only a 10% thing. Maybe it's just a little thing, but it's causing a big problem. So when you have your next therapy session, maybe just raise that with your therapist. It's like, look, I'd like to talk about why I needed that validation from this random stranger on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah. So that's it, man. That's the journey, and I can't give you the answer. That's something you've got to go and find out for yourself. And when you do find out, let me know what the answer is, because I'll be interested to know what it was.
Will do. Thank you very much.
So, okay, buddy. So I'm gonna wrap this up. So I've got to start preparing for the next call. But did you get what you needed from today? And do you have any final questions?
Absolutely. When will it come out?
It'll be sometime next week. So it probably would be Tuesday or Thursday. It just depends on like what content I've got scheduled next week. So I typically how my process works, I typically sort of start making most of my content over the weekend, but today I've actually been coaching most of the day, so I haven't had much time to actually create anything today. So, and I'm going out with friends tomorrow, so I'm going to be behind this weekend, but it'll definitely be up next week, Tuesday or Thursday, definitely.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, buddy.
Excellent.
All right, lovely. Lester, I really appreciate you sharing your story today. Thank you so much. And I know, there'll be people that will, get something out of this. So I do appreciate it. It takes courage to talk about what you've talked about today. So thank you so much. I do really appreciate it, and your support and how you support the channel. Thank you. It's a privilege. It really is.
Thank you
For
very
me,
much.
it's a privilege for me, not for you. Sorry, that sounded really bad.
It's a privilege for me to hear you.
Yeah, okay, man. I appreciate it. But listen, look, keep me updated. Drop me an email with the progress, and look, if you need more help in the future, we can sort that out. And yeah, but look, I think you're doing a lot of things right. So just keep doing what you're doing, and look, I promise, man, you're gonna be fine. You will be okay. It's just gonna take some time.
Thank you very much. I hope so.
Okay, buddy. Right, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, man. See you later. Bye-bye.